What secret will you never share to anyone? Story 1. A few years ago, I worked at a large retail plaza. One morning, right as I stepped through the employee entrance, I sneezed hard and immediately lost control of my bowels. Mortified and just steps from my store, I veered into a nearby discount department store. I only had $6 and change on me, so I made a beeline for the men's underwear section and bought the cheapest pack I could find. I hurried to the mall restrooms to clean up. Thankfully, they were empty. I texted my manager saying I was caught in traffic, though I was less than a block away trying to pull myself together. After 25 minutes and a lot of paper towels, I emerged clean, changed, and determined to never let that happen again. I made it to my shift on time. That day became my baseline for embarrassment. Nothing since has topped it. Story 2. In second grade, I had a teacher who was unusually strict about bathroom breaks. She never allowed them during class, not even during quiet reading time. Twice that week, I wet myself because she refused to let me go. The third time, I begged for nearly 10 minutes before she finally said, "Fine." I didn't make it. I wet myself in the hallway, just steps from the restroom. My family thinks it only happened once, but I endured that humiliation 3 times, within the first week of school. After that, I started bringing an empty plastic water bottle and kept it hidden in my desk, just in case. I also stopped raising my hand and simply waited for recess. Looking back, I can't believe that policy was allowed. I never told anyone how often it happened. When I posted this online recently, it went viral. I even had to silence Reddit notifications because I couldn't sleep. Story 3. When I was 16, my father, who worked in tech, got a high-end gaming laptop as a promotional gift. Since he didn't game, he handed it down to me. I was over the moon. He reminded me over and over not to place drinks near it. But one night, I brought a big bowl of cereal to my desk and forgot my spoon. As I returned with it, I tripped over my blanket and spilled the entire bowl of milk directly onto the keyboard. In a panic, I powered it off and tried to wipe everything down, but it never turned back on. Terrified of disappointing him, I told my dad that I had no idea what happened. I said it was working fine the night before. He believed me. To this day, I've never confessed the truth. I still feel a pit in my stomach whenever I think about it. Story 4. At age 9, I had pet mice. One gave birth, but then she started eating her babies. Horrified, I ran to my stepfather crying, not understanding why she would do such a thing. His response was chilling. He dragged me to the laundry sink and forced me to hold the mother mouse underwater until she stopped moving. I cried the entire time, trying to pull away. As if that weren't enough, he later fed the surviving babies to his aggressive fish. I think it was an Oscar. That moment scarred me. He was a deeply abusive man. My mom finally left him after he nearly beat her to death. I've never told anyone this, not even in therapy. I was just a kid, forced into something awful, yet I still carry the guilt like it was my choice. Story 5. When I was 15, I stayed overnight at my best friend's house and crashed in the guest room. At around 2 a.m., her older brother stumbled in after partying. He slurred a greeting, then went to his room without turning off the hallway light. I couldn't sleep with the light on, so I got up to switch it off. On the way back, I glanced into his room. His door was open, and he was watching something explicit, completely pantsless. I must have made a noise because he turned around and saw me. "Oh no," he muttered. 5 minutes later, he showed up at my door, pale and anxious. He begged me not to tell his sister. I promised I wouldn't. To this day, she still doesn't know. She thinks he has a crush on me because he's always awkward around me. But I know the real reason. Story 6. When I was about 13, I used to pretend I was a character in every show I watched. I'd put on headphones, crank up music, and act out scenes in my room from Totally Spies or Teen Titans. One day, while I was mid-monologue, my older brother popped out of the closet. He'd been hiding there, recording me with his phone. I was so mortified I tackled him in a panic, trying to delete the video. He laughed so hard he couldn't breathe. He never showed the video to anyone, but he kept teasing me about it for years. I became paranoid about being watched after that. I even stopped dancing in my room. Oddly enough, I'm now thankful for the experience. It made me more self-aware, even if it still makes me cringe. Story 7. During a summer visit to my mom's hometown in Mexico, I stayed at my great-uncle's house with my mom and little sister. One night, I was playing games on my phone when I heard a faint gunshot. I figured someone was drunk. It was wedding season. A few minutes later, 2 louder gunshots rang out, much closer. No one else woke up. The next morning, my mom asked if I'd heard anything. I said yes, and she told me a man nearby had shot his wife with a shotgun. He was arrested. But what haunts me is that first shot. It sounded different, like a handgun. No one else heard it, and no one else mentioned it. I can't stop wondering. Did she try to defend herself? Was someone else hurt? I'll never know. But I think I was the only witness to the first sound of violence that night. Story 8. In 6th grade, our math teacher hosted a jelly bean guessing contest. A huge jar sat at the front of the room, and whoever came closest to the total won the whole thing. The teacher unknowingly revealed that the exact number was taped under the lid. I hatched a plan. I told my classmate Ryan to pretend he forgot his lunch and run back to the room during recess. While there, he checked the number and submitted a guess under my and my partner's names. I told him not to write the exact number, just close enough. We won, of course. Ryan asked for half as promised. I gave him a small handful and said that was all he'd get. He was furious, but I shrugged it off. I ate nearly 400 jelly beans in 3 days. I've only ever told my spouse this story, and she now double-checks my math. Story 9. The week before I graduated high school, our family home burned down. No one was hurt, but we lost everything. I was in chemistry class where our entire grade depended on a lab notebook we'd kept all semester. I hadn't done most of the work and was dreading the deadline. The day after the fire, I told my teacher my notebook had been destroyed. Without a second thought, he gave me full credit. "You've got more important things to worry about," he said. "Focus on graduating." I did, and I never forgot his kindness. Still, I feel a flicker of guilt every time I remember that I hadn't written a single lab report. Story 10. When I was 6, my grandmother had 2 dogs, Belle, a fluffy Maltese, and Kona, a large Ridgeback. Belle was sweet and harmless, so we always played with her. Kona, however, was always kept away from us. "Kona doesn't like kids," my mom warned. Eventually, my grandmother moved next door, and the dogs had more freedom. I was playing outside with our old Labrador one day when Kona wandered into the yard. Excited, I ran toward her. Too fast. She panicked and bit me. It didn't break skin, but it left a bruise and a row of teeth marks. I didn't tell anyone. I thought I'd be blamed. After that, I ignored Kona. But something changed. She started following me, sitting beside me, even sleeping near me. My parents marveled at her transformation. "She must have sensed he was safe," they'd say. I didn't tell them the truth until I was 22. Story 11. My dad passed away suddenly when I was 15. Years before that, he'd owned a gorgeous motorcycle. A classic model he had to sell when money got tight. It was his pride and joy. Years later, when I was in college, I found out the man who had bought the bike was ready to sell. I was 18 and broke, but just hearing about the bike brought back every memory of my dad. My girlfriend at the time told her father, and he quietly bought it for me. "He'd want you to have it," he said. I was speechless. That motorcycle is still the most meaningful thing I own. My girlfriend and I eventually split, but her dad and I still keep in touch. He gave me something I never thought I'd see again, and for that, I'll always be grateful. Story 12. In 8th grade shop class, we were working with sawdust collection tubes that connected to the table saws. One day, I told a kid named Travis to look through the tube to see if it was clogged. When he leaned in, I impulsively blew into the other end. The blast of sawdust hit him square in the eyes. He screamed, and I immediately regretted it. He had to use the emergency eye wash station and missed the rest of class. Our teacher was furious and punished me by assigning summer cleanup duty. But I never showed up. I left town the day school ended. I was transferring schools anyway. I still remember the panic on Travis's face and how stupid I felt. It was meant to be a joke, but it could have caused real harm. I've never told anyone I skipped the punishment. Story 13. Last Christmas, my mom drank far too much. It was just the two of us. She had cooked all morning and offered me a sample of the pork roast. When I said yes, she tried to cut a piece but could barely hold the knife. I thought she was just tired. 20 minutes later, she dropped the entire roast onto the floor. Hot oil splashed everywhere, and she slipped, hitting her head on the linoleum. She wasn't knocked out, but she was groggy. I helped her to bed, wiped the oil off her skin, and spent the next 2 hours cleaning. Then I drove around town looking for food. Every place was closed. I ended up eating stale cereal alone on Christmas night. I've never told anyone except my partner. It was one of the loneliest nights of my life. Story 14. In high school, I had trouble connecting with people, but I found out my cousin attended the same school. We weren't close before, but we started having lunch together. He was funny and kind, and we became best friends. One day, a girl invited me to eat sushi with her. I ditched my cousin, telling him the truth. He looked disappointed but said, "Go for it." I went, but the girl ditched me last minute to go to another restaurant with her friends. I was too embarrassed to go back, so I wandered the halls. I passed the library and saw my cousin sitting alone, reading. I felt awful. I never told him what happened. I just promised myself never to break a bond like that again. Story 15. When I was 6, I said a bad word I'd heard on TV. My mom warned me not to say it again or she'd clean my mouth with soap. I didn't understand the seriousness, so I repeated it. She marched me to the sink, grabbed a bar of soap, and put it in my mouth. I cried and gagged, but she made me sit there holding it between my teeth. My dad found out and was furious. They screamed at each other until he pinned her down on the couch, yelling that she had crossed a line. He grabbed me and we drove around aimlessly for hours. When we got back, the house was a disaster. Something glass had shattered, and there was blood on the carpet. That day marked the beginning of my emotional distance. I never saw them the same. Story 16. When I was 17, I worked part-time at a small-town grocery store. One afternoon, on my break, I saw a girl I knew from school browsing the canned goods. She had a large purse and looked nervous. I watched as she quickly stashed 2 cans of soup inside. She glanced around but didn't see me. I called her name casually, pretending I hadn't noticed anything. She jumped, said something about forgetting her phone, and walked out. She didn't come back. Her family struggled a lot. She had 3 younger siblings and a mom who wasn't around much. I never told anyone. If she needed food that badly, I wasn't going to be the one to make her life harder. Story 17. There was a girl I loved in college. Deeply. We were close friends, and I gave her everything. My time, my attention, even rides at 2 a.m. when she needed someone. I knew all her secrets, but she barely knew mine. I never told her about my mental health battles, or how I barely slept. I played the part of the strong, cheerful friend. One night, we were drinking in a field and she said, "I love you." I wanted to say it back, but I couldn't. I felt like I wasn't enough, like I couldn't be loved until I fixed myself. So I smiled and gently turned her down. I still wonder, was that the right choice? Or did I let my only real chance slip away? Story 18. Back in high school, I tried to befriend a quiet girl no one talked to. I bought her lunch, lent her clothes, even offered to take her to prom as a friend. I bought her a dress, but she didn't like it, so I let her wear mine. The night of the dance, she vanished the moment we arrived. I texted her, but she never responded. I went home early. Later, she told me the dress ripped and the shoes broke. I let it go. But then she stole $60 from my backpack, money I was collecting for a school fundraiser. The school refused to act, so I reported her anonymously after hiding something in her gym bag. She ended up expelled. Story 19. When I was 10, my parents were stuck in a loveless marriage. The house always felt tense. I became the comic relief, always trying to make them laugh. One day, my mom asked me to shock the boiled eggs, meaning drop them in ice water. Instead, I lifted the lid and yelled, "Boo!" like a maniac. She burst into laughter, tears streaming down her face. She still tells that story every year. Everyone thinks it was an innocent misunderstanding. It wasn't. I just wanted to see her smile. I never corrected her. That moment meant more to me than she'll ever know. Story 20. From 4th grade through senior year, my best friend was a compulsive liar. He was kind, funny, and always made me feel better about my own problems. But slowly, the lies got bigger. He claimed songs were his, made up stories about his family, even lied about where he worked. After high school, we lost touch. One day, I ran into him while jogging. We chatted like old times, and he said he wanted to reconnect. I messaged him later, but he never replied. A year later, he was homeless. He asked if he could crash at my place for a few nights. I said no. I felt terrible, but I couldn't trust him anymore. Story 21. I used to live in a rural area. One day, my neighbor, an older woman who was kind but intense, accused me of killing her cat. She said I must have done it because I didn't like cats and had once complained about her pet wandering onto my property. I denied it, of course, but nothing I said seemed to matter. Our once friendly relationship ended right there. Years later, while clearing out a long-abandoned barn, I pulled up some rotting floorboards and found a tiny collar with an Auburn Tigers logo, my neighbor's favorite team. There were also scattered bones nearby. It hit me. A fox must have dragged her cat under there. I never told her. I figured it would hurt her more to know the truth. She still avoids me, probably thinking I'm heartless. But I know I didn't do it, and I know what really happened. Sometimes it's better to be disliked than to reopen someone's grief. Story 22. Years ago, I worked at a group home for adults with disabilities. One of my coworkers would show up high or drunk on her overnight shifts. I reported her repeatedly to management, but no one took action. She was popular with the staff and good at hiding her behavior. Eventually, I started documenting everything. I called the Office of Protective Services anonymously and reported what I had seen. I even contacted Adult Protective Services. No one seemed to care, until one of the residents was physically assaulted. Then everything exploded. People were suddenly shocked, and management pretended they had no idea. Coworkers started saying whoever made the report should come forward and take credit. I never did. The woman and several others were fired or investigated. I worked over 100 hours a week back then just to ensure the residents were safe when no one else would protect them. I still feel like I didn't do enough, but I also know that without those calls, things could have gotten even worse. Story 23. I come from a large family in a country where Islam is the majority religion. My parents converted to Christianity when I was young, and that decision made us outcasts. Extended relatives cut ties, and we were excluded from weddings, holidays, even basic family dinners. When I was 5, my grandmother tried to sell me to a radical religious group. A doctor had also expressed interest in buying me. That was the last straw. My parents fled the country with help from a distant relative, and we started over abroad. Growing up, I watched my cousins enjoy the support of our old family while we were isolated. My dad became a leader in a different faith group, but he was a hypocrite, preaching kindness but treating us terribly at home. I've never told anyone this. People don't realize how much religious discrimination exists within certain countries. I avoid talking about it because criticism of religion can be dangerous, even online. But it shaped me. I see religion now as a tool of fear and division. I wish that wasn't true. Story 24. When I was 10, someone abandoned a kitten in our yard. She was tiny, scared, and instantly became mine in my heart. I adored her. One afternoon, I took her outside to play. On the way back in, I found a long stick and started swinging it around, pretending I was a warrior. She chased it, pouncing and meowing. But I misjudged a swing and struck her head. She let out a sound I'll never forget, a mix of confusion and pain. I froze. I picked her up and carried her inside, saying nothing. My parents immediately knew something was wrong. We took her to the vet, and she was treated for a head injury. But after a month, her condition worsened, and we had to let her go. I cried for weeks. I still do sometimes. No one outside my family knows what really happened. I didn't mean to hurt her. I just wanted to play. But that doesn't change the outcome. Story 25. I think about becoming homeless almost every single day. Not out of fear, out of preparation. I have serious mental health challenges. And even though I have a loving partner and a few good friends, I can't shake the belief that one day I'll lose everything. I walk around town, noting places where I could safely sleep. I keep mental maps of food banks, public restrooms, and where I could possibly bathe. I've even calculated how much it would cost to hitchhike south if I needed to escape the winter cold. 2 people I grew up with are already homeless. I've seen firsthand how quickly it can happen. I try to remind myself that I'm okay for now, but the hyper-awareness never fades. Most people think disaster won't happen to them. I know better. When I see someone sleeping on concrete, my first thought isn't pity. It's that could be me. That might still be me. I've never told anyone just how often I plan for this. It's my quiet, constant companion. Story 26. My dad was a brilliant scientist in India, but never much of a father. He never took us to movies, never asked how we were doing. He just paid for things and went back to work. It was an arranged marriage with my mom, and I think he resented her. As a teenager, I moved to Europe. We started talking more often, and I began sending him articles about parenting and emotional health. One day, I forwarded a Facebook post about how to raise emotionally secure children. Hours later, he called me in tears. He said he had failed me. I told him it was okay, that I was doing well now. 2 days later, my mom called me over 100 times while I was asleep. When I finally answered, she told me he'd had a fatal heart attack. I can't help but think I triggered it. I've never told anyone else about that message I sent. Everyone just assumes it was stress from work. But I carry the weight of that call. Story 27. When I was 7, my best friend and I were obsessed with our neighbor's golden retrievers. Her name was Tracy, and she was always kind to us. One day, we knocked on her door, but no one answered. So we wandered around to the back patio. The sliding door was locked. My friend picked up a rock and smashed the lock. We stepped inside, convinced we'd find the dogs. Instead, we found a bowl of chocolate and a $5 bill on the counter. I ate a bunch of chocolates. My friend pocketed the money. Then we left. A few days later, Tracy told us she was moving. Someone had broken in, stolen money, and eaten her candy. She blamed her ex-boyfriend, who had been stalking her for years. The police came. We didn't say a word. 20 years later, I ran into her at a store. She told me they eventually arrested her ex. I smiled and nodded. I still can't believe we let someone else take the fall. Story 28. From ages 14 to 17, I spent every winter and summer break living with my uncle and grandfather. My uncle would wait until late at night, then ask me to watch a movie with him. He'd sit too close, give me harmless massages, and sometimes try to cuddle. One night, I think he tried to kiss me. I froze each time, unsure what to do. I never told anyone, not even when my mom walked in one night and saw us way too close. She just stared, said nothing, and walked away. That silence hurt more than anything. I've opened up to my girlfriend about it, and she's encouraged me to start therapy. I plan to when I can afford it, but I still feel ashamed. Like I let it happen. I know that's not true, but it's hard to unlearn. Story 29. I worked at a summer camp deep in the woods. One weekend, the staff had the day off, so I drove into town for dinner. I ate a massive plate of cheesy enchiladas and returned to camp feeling fine, at first. Then the stomach cramps hit. I power walked toward the pool house, the nearest bathroom. I was maybe 30 steps away when my body gave out. I froze mid-step, trying to hold it in, but it was too late. I waddled into the pool house, tossed my soiled boxers in a plastic bag I found under the sink, and cleaned up as best I could. Afterward, I walked commando to the main camp and discreetly threw the bag into a hidden trash can. No one ever found out. I still think about that day when I wear tight-fitting boxers. They took the hit for me. Story 30. At 15, I attempted to take my own life by swallowing nearly 40 extra-strength painkillers. I was exhausted and felt invisible. A few hours later, I felt scared. Not just of dying, but of what my little brother might find. He slept one bunk above me. That thought jolted me. I walked to my parents' room and told them what I'd done. They rushed me to the ER. I was airlifted to a larger hospital and spent 2 months in a treatment center. When I returned to school, rumors swirled. People knew I had tried something, but no one knew that I was the one who asked for help. I told no one. I didn't want people thinking I had done it for attention. It was the lowest point in my life. But in the end, I saved myself. And I've never said that out loud until now. Story 31. I've battled depression for over a decade now. Some days are better, but most days just feel like surviving. I worked my way from having no degree to making $67,000 a year in only 3 years. I got married to someone I truly loved. A man who became a great father to my son. But over time, he stopped listening, stopped caring. I went years without emotional or physical intimacy. Eventually, I found out he cheated. That was it. I asked for a divorce and moved out. I let my son stay with him because he was finally doing well in school, and I didn't want to disrupt that. People ask me how I'm doing. I say, it's better to be alone than to feel alone in a relationship. But I don't know if I even believe that. My son forgot my birthday. He forgot Mother's Day. I tell myself holidays don't matter, but it still hurts. I'm not going to do anything to hurt myself. My son needs me, but it's hard to shake the feeling that I've become invisible. I think about therapy, but I don't know if it would help. I've already told my story to so many people, and it never changed anything. Story 32. I was invited to a pool party when I was around 11. I didn't know many of the kids, just the birthday boy from school. But I went anyway. The pool was massive, shaped like a lagoon, with boulders and a waterfall slide. We were all throwing footballs and beach balls across the water. It was chaotic, balls flying in every direction. There was this kid, Chad, who wasn't even the birthday kid, but he acted like the party was for him. He was loud, bossy, and took everything first. Everyone seemed to love him, though. At one point, he was standing in the middle of the pool, showing off. I was off to the side, partially hidden by a rock. I grabbed a football and launched it as hard as I could. I didn't think it would hit him, but it did. Right in the face. He started crying, holding his cheek, asking who threw it. No one said anything, and the chaos made it impossible to tell. 30 minutes later, he was back to showing off. I kept quiet. I've seen him around town a few times since then. He's still the same guy. I don't feel bad about it, not even a little. Story 33. We had a cat who started peeing all over the house. No matter how many litter boxes we put out or how much we cleaned, she kept doing it. We took her to the vet multiple times. She had no medical issues. We tried anti-anxiety meds, antidepressants, even hired a cat behaviorist. That woman told us to remove all furniture in shades that cats can't see, and to buy healing crystals for the corners of each room. We kicked her out after one visit. Still, the cat kept peeing. Eventually, the other cats started copying her. Our floors were soaked, the baseboards were ruined, and the smell wouldn't leave. The final straw was when my 1-year-old daughter crawled through a puddle of pee we hadn't noticed. I tried to rehome her for months, but no one wanted her. One day, I gave up. I drove her to a city shelter. They told me she'd be put down that day. I cried the whole way home. 2 days later, someone emailed about the rehoming ad. She was willing to take her. I never replied. I didn't have the heart to say she was already gone. My family doesn't know. I just said she was adopted. Story 34. I got my first period in 5th grade. I didn't want anyone to know, so I kept a few pads in my backpack and tried to manage it quietly. But I had a heavy flow, and I needed to change pads 3 or 4 times a day. My teacher noticed how often I was asking to use the restroom and started getting annoyed. One day, after I asked a second time, she snapped in front of the entire class. She demanded I show her what I was taking from my bag every time I left the room. I was mortified. Crying, I pulled out the pads and held them up. She still said no. I sat back down and bled through my jeans. Couldn't believe it. I never told my parents what happened. I was too embarrassed. I don't even think I told my friends. That moment stuck with me. It taught me that people in authority can still humiliate you, even when you're just trying to take care of your body. I didn't ask to start my period that early. I didn't ask to be the lesson she taught that day. But I remember. I always will. Story 35. I used to work in IT support, visiting offices to upgrade equipment. One day, I called ahead to let the client know I'd be arriving in about 20 minutes. She said she had to step out but would leave the door unlocked because someone else was coming to pick up a package. When I got there, the office was empty. I did the upgrade, tested everything, and packed up my tools. But then I felt it. That stomach drop that meant go now. I found the bathroom and absolutely destroyed it. When I flushed, the water started rising. Then it overflowed. Fast. It wasn't all mine either, probably a septic issue. Toilet paper, sewage, everything flooded onto the floor. Panicked. I didn't know what to do. I cleaned what I could, but it kept coming. I quietly put the old equipment back in place and left. I called the client and said I'd been delayed by another call and would have to reschedule. When I came back the next week, the whole place was being renovated. She said the guy who picked up the package must have clogged the toilet. I nodded. I've never told anyone it was me. That poor guy took the blame. Story 36. When I was about 10, I had Ross River fever, a mosquito-borne illness that left me in bed for weeks. We lived in the Australian bush, and both my parents worked full-time. I stayed home alone most days, barely able to get out of bed. It was rough, but nothing dramatic happened. A year later, in school, we were assigned a creative writing project. I wrote a story about getting trapped under my wardrobe while sick and alone, unable to move for hours. It was fiction, obviously, but my mom found my writing book and read it without asking. She thought it was real. I came home one day to find her crying, holding the notebook. I could have corrected her, but I didn't. I added a few more details and made some tears of my own. She was horrified, convinced she'd neglected me. I let her believe it. She still brings it up now, decades later. She talks about how guilty she felt, how she could have lost me that day. I know it was wrong to let her think that, but at the time it felt like justice for all the times she ignored what I really needed. Story 37. This happened last July 4th. I'm engaged to an amazing woman, but before our wedding, we agreed on an open relationship with 2 rules. Use protection and always tell each other. She went on a trip to visit family, and I went to a party alone. 2 women flirted with me all night, but left before anything happened. Around midnight, I opened Tinder and matched with someone staying at a nearby hotel. We started chatting and eventually hooked up. About 5 minutes in, they told me, "I'm TS, so you'll need to use the back." I was tipsy and confused, but just said, "Okay." They pulled down their pants, and I noticed something unexpected. That's when it clicked. I realized what TS meant. I froze for a moment, unsure what to do. I didn't want to be rude, but I lost interest. I stopped and said it wasn't working for me. They seemed disappointed but didn't get angry. I left after that. I never told my fiancée, not because I broke the rules, but because I don't know how she'd react. I followed our agreement, but I know if I told her, she'd never look at me the same. Story 38. Strange, the things you remember. I was 13. I had a hamster named Jellybean. I wasn't supposed to take him out of the cage without supervision, but I did anyway. I put him in one of my socks, I don't remember why. Maybe I thought it was a game. He squirmed, and I laughed. I squeezed too hard. I didn't mean to, I swear. He stopped moving. Panicked. I buried him in the backyard and told my parents he ran away. They helped me make missing posters. I cried with them, but I knew. I always knew. And sometimes when I see socks balled up in the laundry, I feel nauseous. I haven't told anyone. Who would understand? I was just a kid, but it doesn't feel innocent. It feels like a line I crossed and never came back from. Story 39. When I was 14, my friend and I accidentally started a fire. It wasn't huge, but it was enough. We were behind his house, trying to burn a pile of old worksheets and failed tests. It started as a joke. "Burn the evidence," we said. We didn't think about wind, or dry grass, or the fact that his dad's shed was just a few yards away. The fire spread fast. We panicked and ran for the hose, but it wasn't connected. His mom called 911 when she saw smoke from the kitchen window. The fire department arrived before the flames could reach the house, but the shed was gone. 2 trees caught fire, and the neighbor's fence was scorched. We told everyone we had just been playing with matches and didn't realize they were still lit. But the truth is, we were trying to make it burn. We thought it would be cool. His parents grounded him for a month. Mine never found out. The fire chief said it must have started from a stray cigarette. We nodded along. We never told anyone the full story. We still bring it up sometimes, quietly, like it was some weird dream. But it wasn't. Story 40. When I was 15, I got pregnant. No one knows. Not my family, not my ex, not even my closest friend. I found out 3 weeks after we broke up. He had already moved on, and I was too ashamed to tell him. My mom worked 2 jobs, and I was terrified she'd throw me out if she knew. I searched online for hours, looking for clinics that didn't require parental consent. I ended up taking a bus 2 towns over to a place I found on a forum. It was quiet, clean, and no one asked questions. I paid in cash I'd saved for a birthday trip. Afterward, I went to school like nothing happened. I told my mom I had a group project. I never told anyone the truth. I still think about it sometimes. How fast everything changed. How quickly it ended. I don't regret the decision, but I regret how alone I felt. I wish someone had been there. I wish I'd told someone, but I didn't. I just kept going. That secret lives in a quiet little corner of my body, like a scar that no one can see but me. Story 41. My little brother fell through the ice because of me. We were playing on the lake behind our grandparents' house. It had snowed a few days earlier, and the surface looked solid. I dared him to walk out further than I would. He was 8. I was 12. He laughed and did it. About 10 steps out, the ice gave way. He sank fast. I screamed and ran to the edge. I slid on my stomach and grabbed his arm just as he came up. I pulled with everything I had, and somehow I got him out. He was shaking and soaked, but alive. We never told anyone. We went inside, changed clothes, and made up a story about falling in the snow. I made him promise not to say anything. I was scared my parents would hate me, scared they'd take him to the hospital and find out how close he came to drowning. He's in college now. We don't talk much, but sometimes he texts me a snowflake emoji in winter. I know what it means. I never responded the first few times. Then one year I sent back a single drop of water. He just replied with a heart. Story 42. In my early 20s, I lived with 3 roommates. One of them, Tyler, had a cat named Nova. She was skittish and didn't really like people, but she always sat in the hallway near my bedroom. I started feeding her bits of chicken from my dinner, and eventually, she warmed up to me. One night, I came home late and found her motionless in the laundry room. I could tell something was wrong. She was breathing, but barely. I panicked and called Tyler, but he didn't answer. None of us had money for a vet. So I wrapped her in a towel, walked 3 miles to an emergency clinic, and paid with a credit card I couldn't afford to max out. The vet said it was poisoning, likely from a cleaning product. She survived, but it was close. When Tyler asked what happened, I lied. I said I found her like that and called the clinic anonymously. I didn't want the credit. I just wanted her to live. I never told him I saved her. I just kept feeding her chicken. She died of old age years later, curled up in the hallway outside my door. That little secret still makes me smile. Story 43. When I was 17, I stole $500 from my stepdad. I found the cash in a drawer while looking for batteries. He was always careless with money, leaving it around the house, forgetting where he put it. I was broke. I just lost my job. My car needed repairs, and I was too proud to ask for help. So I took it. I spent it slowly: gas, groceries, a concert ticket I told my friends was a gift. A week later, he asked if anyone had seen the envelope. My stomach dropped. He wasn't angry, just confused. My mom started looking under furniture like it had somehow slipped behind the couch. I kept quiet. I even helped them look. He never found it. Months passed and he forgot. I never gave the money back. I told myself I'd do it one day, in a way that wouldn't give me away. But I never did. He died of a heart attack 3 years later. I cried at his funeral, and I meant every tear. He was a good man. I still think about that envelope. It wasn't just money. It was trust. And I took it. Story 44. My boyfriend thinks I've only ever been with him. That I waited. That I was nervous and shy and saving myself. It's what he wanted. Someone pure. Someone untouched. I let him believe it. I smiled when he called me his first. I even faked awkwardness the first time, just so he'd feel special. The truth is, I lost my virginity at 16 to someone I met at a weekend party. It was awkward and fast, and I never saw him again. Since then, I've had 3 other partners. All short-lived, all casual. I don't regret them, but I regret the lie. The longer we're together, the harder it is to tell him. He still talks about how proud he is to be my only. He says things like, I couldn't be with someone who'd been around. I laugh, say nothing, bury the guilt. I love him, but I hate that I've had to erase parts of myself just to be loved by him. I know I'm not the person he thinks I am, but I also know he wouldn't stay if he knew the truth. So I stay quiet. Story 45. When I was 8, I broke a kid's arm. It wasn't on purpose. We were at recess playing tag. He shoved me and I shoved him back. Harder than I meant to. He fell off the jungle gym and landed wrong. His scream made everyone freeze. Teachers ran over, and someone yelled that he slipped. I didn't correct them. I just stood there, shaking. He had to wear a cast for 6 weeks. I signed it. We even played together a few times after that. But I never told him I was the reason he fell. I don't think he knew. That moment has followed me ever since. Every time I see someone trip, or hear a bone crack in a movie, I flinch. I was just a kid, but I still feel like I got away with something. It was an accident, but I never owned it. I just let the lie settle in the silence. Story 46. Freshman year of college, I pretended to be someone else online. Started as a joke. I made a fake profile, used a random girl's photos, and started messaging people. I didn't catfish for romance. I just wanted someone to talk to. I was lonely, missing home, feeling invisible. One guy stood out. He was kind, funny, and so open. He told her things he probably never told anyone. I started looking forward to his messages more than anything else. It went on for 3 months. Then he said he wanted to meet. Panicked. I deleted the account, blocked him, and ghosted completely. A week later, I saw him in the cafeteria. He was sitting alone, staring at his phone. I walked past him like I didn't know him. He never found out it was me. But I still think about the things he said. How he trusted me, her. I stole that trust and I never gave it back. I just disappeared, like I was never real. Which I guess I wasn't. Story 47. My wife thinks I quit smoking years ago. I told her I did. I meant to, but I didn't. Started as just one here and there, when she was out or I was on a walk. I kept mints in my pocket, changed shirts before coming home. It became a routine, a hidden part of my day. She was so proud of me for quitting. Bragged to her friends. Bought me a cake on my 1-year anniversary. I smiled, took a photo with the cake, then snuck out that night for a cigarette. I felt disgusting. I've tried to quit again. I've flushed packs, chewed gum, made promises. But I always go back. Not because I love it, but because it's the one thing that's mine. The one part of my life no one sees. I know she'd feel betrayed. I know it's not just about the smoke. It's about the lie. That's what eats at me. Not the nicotine. The dishonesty. I want to tell her. I do. But then I light another, and tell myself, tomorrow. Story 48. The first Tim. Yeah, I ever faked an orgasm. I didn't even know if I was doing it right. I just wanted it to be over. He was nice, kind, even my first serious boyfriend. But he kept asking, did you come? And I felt like I was supposed to say yes. So I did. Every time. I got really good at it. Breathing heavy, saying the right things, making my body twitch a little. After a while, it became habit. I didn't know how to tell him I didn't know how to finish with someone else. He thought he was amazing in bed. I let him think that. We broke up years ago, but I still do it sometimes. with new partners, with people I actually like. I don't know how to explain that it's not about them. It's about me. My body doesn't respond to pressure, or expectations, or being watched. One guy told me he could always tell when it's real. I nodded. But the truth is, no one's ever known. It's easier to lie than to explain why I don't always get there. Story 49. I had a thing with my married coworker once. Started with harmless texts, jokes, memes, a little teasing. He'd complain about his wife. I'd pretend to listen. Then one night, after too many drinks at a work event, we ended up in his hotel room. We didn't have sex, not exactly, but it was close. Hands, mouths, zipped pants. I left before sunrise, heart pounding, ashamed. He texted me the next day, "Let's pretend last night didn't happen." I agreed. We never spoke about it again. He still works in the same department, still posts vacation photos with his wife and kids. Sometimes I wonder if he thinks about it, if he feels guilty. I do, but not for what we did, for how easy it was. I never told anyone, not my friends, not my therapist. There's something about being someone's secret that messes with your head. You start to wonder if that's all you're good for. Story 50. I once sent nudes to the wrong person. It wasn't even dramatic, no gasps or threats or fallout. Just a quiet, horrifying moment when I realized I'd typed the wrong name. I'd meant to send them to my boyfriend. I sent them to a former professor. He didn't reply, ever. Not even to say wrong number. I waited, heart in my throat, for days. He never brought it up. I dropped the class. I still don't know if he opened it. Maybe he deleted it right away. Maybe he still has it. I'll never know. My boyfriend never found out. I told him I was just feeling shy that night. It changed the way I use my phone. I triple-check every name. I barely send anything anymore. But sometimes, I still think about that message sitting in someone's inbox. Just waiting. Story 51. My partner thinks I've only ever kissed women before him. He likes that idea, says it turns him on. The straight girl turned curious narrative. What he doesn't know is that my longest relationship was with a woman. We lived together, shared bills, talked about kids. It ended badly. She cheated. I left. When I met him, I didn't want to explain it. Didn't want to relive it. So I said I'd fooled around once in college. Just for fun. He smiled and said, "That's hot." Now he jokes about threesomes. Sends me TikToks of girls kissing. I laugh, play along. But deep down, I feel like I erased her. Like I erased 5 years of my life to make myself more palatable. I don't know how to bring it up now. I'm scared he'll feel lied to. Or worse, disappointed. Story 52. I slept with my friend's ex. It wasn't planned. We ran into each other at a bar. Both drunk, both a little heartbroken. She'd broken up with him 3 months earlier. Said he was boring, too safe. He didn't seem boring that night. The next morning, we both agreed to pretend it didn't happen. She'd never know. But it changed everything. Every time she talks about him, how he was the worst in bed, how she never missed him, I feel a tightness in my chest. Not because I feel guilty, but because I liked it. I liked him. I still think about texting him. But I don't. Because secrets this size don't stay secrets forever. And I'd rather be haunted than hated. Story 53. I used to write dirty stories online under a fake name. Weird stuff. Niche stuff. Not the kind you find in bookstores. It started as a joke in college. Then I got followers. Then I made money. More than I expected. I kept it up for years. Even after I got a real job. Even after I got married. My husband doesn't know. He thinks I freelance for a travel blog. I do sometimes. But most weeks, I'm still writing about strangers in impossible situations, doing things I've never done and probably never will. It's not even about the money now. It's about the control. In real life, I'm quiet, polite. People say I'm sweet. But online, I'm someone else entirely. Story 54. I had sex in a church once. Not during service, obviously. It was late. The building was mostly empty. We were both volunteers cleaning up after a wedding. One moment we were stacking chairs. The next, we were against a wall, hands under clothes, breathless. We didn't even talk about it afterward. Just zipped up and went home. I still see him sometimes. We nod politely, like we didn't do something completely sacrilegious between the altar and the coat rack. I'm not religious, but every time I walk into a church now, I remember the sound of his belt hitting the floor. I never confessed. Story 55. My girlfriend thinks I'm vanilla, that I like soft lights, slow kisses, gentle hands. I let her believe that, but I have an alt account. I follow pages filled with things I'd never say out loud. I've written stories, drawn sketches, even posted anonymously on forums. Sometimes I fantasize about telling her, showing her everything, but then I imagine her face, the pause, the recalibration. I'm scared she'll see me differently, so I stay quiet. Let her call me sweet and safe. I come home, kiss her cheek, then go to the bathroom and scroll through things that make my pulse race. I love her, but I don't think she knows me. Not really. Story 56. I still watch my ex's OnlyFans. She doesn't know. Probably doesn't care. We broke up over a year ago. She started the account after we split. I found it by accident. Curiosity turned into habit. It's not even about the content. It's her. Her voice. Her laugh. The way she still bites her lip when she's nervous. I pay the $12 a month and never interact. Just lurk. I've dated other people since. But none of them make me feel the way she did. I know I should cancel the subscription. I know it's weird, but it's the only place she still looks at me. Story 57. I once had a crush on my best friend's dad. I was 19, home from college, and he'd just gone through a divorce. He was tall, quiet, always smelled like cedar and coffee. One night, we stayed up late watching a movie while she slept upstairs. He offered me wine. I drank too much. At some point, I leaned against him. He didn't move. He didn't kiss me. Nothing happened. But I wanted him to. The next morning, I left early. Never mentioned it. Now, when I visit her house, he barely looks at me. I think he knows. Or maybe he wanted to kiss me, too. Story 58. I'm in love with my girlfriend's sister. It started as a fluke. I'd help her hang lights, fix something around her apartment, and we'd laugh more than we should. She's nothing like my girlfriend. She's loud, sarcastic, a little reckless. But she listens. Really listens. One night, after too many drinks, she kissed me. I pulled back, said it was a mistake. But I didn't leave. We never touched again, but we text. A lot. Late at night, when my girlfriend is asleep beside me. She sends me playlists. I send her photos of things that remind me of her. I haven't cheated, not physically. But my heart's somewhere it's not supposed to be. Every time we go to her parents' house, I sit between them like I'm not tearing in half. I don't know how it ends. But I know I'm not proud of this. Story 59. I once hooked up with a girl just because she had a balcony. I met her at a party. She was funny, confident, a little drunk. She took me back to her place and said, "Let's do it outside." We did. Right there, under the stars, half covered by a hanging plant. It wasn't amazing. We barely spoke after. But I still think about that night. How quiet the city felt. How wild it was to be seen. Maybe. I never told anyone. They'd think I was bragging. But the truth is, I didn't care about her. I just wanted the story. I used her. She probably used me too. That's the part one don't like admitting. Story 60. When I was 20, I used to read my roommate's journal. She kept it in her nightstand, unlocked. I'd open it when she was out, just for a peek. At first, I told myself it was harmless. Curiosity. But then I got addicted. She wrote about everything. Her family, her crushes, her fears. One entry was about me. She said she wasn't sure if I was a good friend, that I was kind but distant, that she thought I might be hiding something. She was right. I stopped reading after that. I couldn't face what else she might have written. We lost touch after college. She probably never knew, but I think about it often. The way I violated her trust without ever getting caught. Sometimes secrets don't feel like secrets until you realize what they cost. Story 61. I got off to a voicemail once. It was a guy I was casually seeing. He called and didn't realize he'd left a message. In the background, I could hear him talking to someone, normal stuff, just chatting. His voice was low, warm, a little raspy. For some reason, it did something to me. I laid there, listening to him laugh through static, and touched myself. I never told him, never mentioned the message. I deleted it the next day, felt a little weird about it, then went right back to pretending I was normal. But the truth is, I have a thing for voices, and no one really knows that. It's the quiet stuff that gets to me, the things no one means to say. Story 62. I slept with my therapist. He wasn't my therapist anymore. We'd ended our sessions months earlier. But it still feels wrong. We ran into each other at a bookstore, talked for a while, got coffee. One thing led to another, and suddenly we were in his apartment. It was strange, familiar. He knew things about me no one else did. I think that's why I did it, to be seen without having to explain myself. Afterward, he said it couldn't happen again. I agreed. Didn't. But I still think about it. Not because it was good, but because it felt like being heard in a way that turned into something else. I wonder if he thinks about it, too. Or if I was just another blurred line in a job full of them. Story 63. I used my ex's toothbrush for months after we broke up. Not out of revenge. Not out of laziness. I just missed him. He left it in my drawer when he moved out. I almost threw it away, but I couldn't, so I kept it. At first, I used it as a backup. Then more often. I told myself it didn't matter, we'd shared so much. What was a toothbrush? But every time I used it, I'd think of him. His mouth. His laugh. Eventually, I tossed it. But I still feel gross about it. It wasn't about hygiene. It was about holding on to something that was already gone. Story 64. I once filmed myself during sex. Not for anyone else, just for me. I set up my phone, angled it just right, and hit record. It wasn't glamorous. The lighting was bad. We fumbled. I laughed halfway through. But when I watched it later, I cried. Not because it was beautiful, but because I didn't recognize myself. I looked happy, free, like someone who knew exactly what they wanted. That wasn't me. Not really. I deleted the video, but sometimes I wish I'd kept it, as proof that, for one night, I wasn't afraid of being seen. Story 65. I flirt with people on dating apps even though I'm in a committed relationship. I never meet up, never even send photos. I just talk, compliment, tease, then delete the chat. It's not about cheating. It's about feeling wanted. My partner loves me, but after 5 years, the compliments have faded. The spark is quieter. On the apps, I'm radiant, mysterious, desirable. I know it's wrong. I know it's emotional cheating, but I tell myself it's harmless, that I'm just keeping my confidence up. The truth is, I don't know how to ask for attention anymore, so I find it in strangers I'll never meet. Story 66. I once lied about a kink just to keep someone interested. He said he liked being dominant, that he needed someone who liked being controlled. I said, me too, but I didn't. Not really. Still, I played the part. Called him sir. Followed rules. Let him tie me up. Sometimes I liked it. Mostly I didn't. But I was scared to lose him. Eventually I ended it. Said I wasn't ready for something serious. He never knew the real reason. Now, when someone asks what I'm into, I hesitate. Am I into it? Or did I just learn to perform it? I'm still figuring it out. Story 67. I used to send anonymous compliments to my coworkers. Sticky notes on computer monitors. You crushed that presentation. Loved your dress today. You're seriously brilliant. People thought it was sweet. Our office called it the compliment fairy. They never knew it was me. I started doing it when I felt invisible. When no one asked how I was doing. Giving kindness made me feel seen. But over time, I got bitter. I'd leave a note and they'd smile, but never once think it could be me. Eventually, I stopped. Now, when someone brings it up, I just smile and say, yeah, that was such a nice phase. No one suspects the sad girl in the corner just wanted someone to notice her. 2. Story 68. There's a guy I follow on Instagram who I've never met, and I'm obsessed with him. I found him through a mutual friend's tagged photo. He lives in a different state, works in design, posts lots of black and white pictures and thoughtful captions. That's all I really know. But I check his stories every day. I save his selfies. I've even written fake replies to his posts in my notes app, like we're having a conversation. I know how it sounds. I'm not delusional. I don't think we're going to end up together. But I like pretending, just a little. Sometimes I imagine meeting him by chance. Coffee shop, maybe. We'd click instantly. He'd say, "I feel like I know you." I'd smile. Say nothing. I've never told anyone about this. It's my quiet little fantasy. And honestly, I don't think I want it to come true. It's better in my head. Story 69. My boyfriend thinks I've only ever been with men. He's never asked directly, just made comments like, "You've probably never had to worry about girls hitting on you, right?" I always laugh and change the subject. But in high school, I had a secret relationship with a girl 2 years older than me. We'd sneak into the theater after hours, kiss behind the curtains. We wrote each other letters, folded into tiny hearts. She moved away after graduation and we lost touch. But I still have one of her letters in a shoebox. I don't know why I've never told him. Maybe because he jokes about girls experimenting like it's a punchline. What we had wasn't an experiment. It was real. And sometimes, I still think about her when I'm lying next to him. Story 70. I once stole someone's underwear from a laundromat. It wasn't premeditated. I was waiting for my clothes to finish drying when I saw a pair of black lace panties in the machine next to mine. They were delicate, beautiful. I don't know what came over me. I looked around, slipped them into my bag, and walked out. I never wore them, just kept them hidden in a drawer, like a trophy or a secret. A few days later, I went back and saw a note taped to the machine. "If anyone took a pair of black underwear, please return them. They were a gift from my late partner." I felt sick. I still have them. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. But I never went back to that laundromat. Story 71. I once used a dating app just to get free meals. I was broke, living paycheck to paycheck, and my fridge was empty. So I downloaded the app, matched with guys who looked like they'd pick fancy restaurants, and said yes to every dinner invite. I never slept with any of them. I didn't even let it get emotional. I'd smile, laugh, ask questions and say, "Thank you, I had a great time." Then I'd block them. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that they got a nice evening out too. But it was manipulative. I knew that. One guy messaged me from another number weeks later. He asked, "Was any of it real?" I didn't reply. I deleted the app that night and cried while eating leftovers from the sushi he paid for. Story 72. I still fantasize about my high school teacher. Nothing ever happened. He never touched me, never crossed a line. But he once told me I had an old soul, and I clung to that like it meant something. He'd recommend books, linger a little too long when handing back papers. I convinced myself we had a connection. I daydream about staying after class, about him closing the door. Looking back, I don't think he meant anything by it. But I did. Even now, years later, I sometimes imagine what it would have been like. I know it's wrong. I know it's wrapped up in power and projection. But the part of me that felt seen, desired, that part still whispers his name when I'm alone.